Welcome to the Defect tier list. We're going to be rating all of the cards on the Defect. Similar, if you haven't seen the Ironclad one, we dropped the video of it today. We did it about 2 weeks ago. I rate them based off of how you feel when you see the card. Regardless of whether it's going to be good in your deck, right? Like, if I'm running a Claw deck, I'm probably not going to want a Bias Cog. But when I see a Bias Cog, it's still like, oh, Bias Cog, right? It's a good card. Electrodynamics. You know, there's just specific things that always feel good to see, regardless of whether or not they're good in your particular deck. And I also figured out in the last tier list that it's kind of like you get like a higher dopamine rush for not only how much a card might affect your deck, but how easily it can make your deck good. How easily it can be put into your deck to be a good card. So we can see it. We're going to go through alphabetically. There's 75 cards, just like there were 75 cards for the Ironclad. I might honestly be a slight bit less articulate about cards because I feel like the Defect is a lot more confusing than the Ironclad. The Ironclad's very bash head into wall. But, and I feel like the Defect has a lot more cards that are very situational. So I feel like the Defect might be rated a little bit lower. Aggregate. A card that if you asked me a couple of weeks ago how good it was, would have been Clash tier, to be honest. But recently they did a minor buff to it to make it just that much better. And it went from F tier, Clash tier, to wow. It has single-handedly made Reboot a good card. I wouldn't say that I'm going to take it all the time. The beta art is literally just in an 8-bit. It's not a card. I haven't used it enough, I would say, with the new buff to it. It seems like it's very good. I have had a couple of times where, you know, you draw it only in the bottom of your deck. It's kind of shitty. But I feel like the Defect gets draw options very, very often with things like Cool-Headed. You know, you got your compile drivers. Defect just naturally has a lot of cycle, a lot of draw, in a lot of decks, I feel like. So playing an aggregate, even if it's in the middle half of your deck, as long as you have some draw in your hand, it can be very, very good. So I honestly, I'm going to start here. This is going to be a little bit low. I'm going to put it in B tier. But again, that's because I don't feel like I've used it enough to get an accurate read on it, and I don't want to overhype it, and because it still has, you know, if we're just talking about what I think about when I look at it, it's just all for one. I am here. All for one, great beta art. Chat would probably like this card. It's got an anime reference in there. I think all for one is good in I think it's good in more decks than people think about, just because of, like, literally if you have a boot sequence and you have an all for one, you could bring that back. I mean, maybe it's a little bit worse. You could use it in like a force field type of deck. You've got like a fission, some FTL action, right? There's plenty of cards of reboots, seeks. There's plenty of times that I feel like all for one could be really good. But one of the things that I really like with all for one is Snecko Eye. It one of the easiest infinites in the game, I would say, is Snecko Eye and Hologram and all for one. And you just hologram, get the all for one back, Snecko Eye to all for one, and they both cost 0. And it's one of the easiest ones to have happen. And you can also set it up with like madness and shit like that. So I feel like the all for one hologram is one of the easiest infinites in the game and is absolutely fantastic. Or just 2/0 cost all for ones. Again, like I was saying, I think it's a little bit harder to rate some of the Defects cards just simply because it's like, it feels good to see, right? Like one in the chat, if seeing an all for one, you're like, dang, I can make a Claw deck. But in reality, like, it's a good card, but it's not a great card. It's not, it's fantastic with stuff, like with Runic Pyramid, with Snecko Eye, with a bunch of Claw cards. But it's not good on its own. But because chat makes me try to do Claw decks all the time with their money, I naturally actually do get quite excited to see. So I'm going to say that it's above aggregate and B tier. Amplify. So there's 3 versions of like the Amplify card, right? There's the double tap for Ironclad. Dog shit, terrible. We went over that. There's Burst, and then there's Amplify. I think that in terms of worst to best, it is definitely double tap, and double tap's like down here, and then amplifies like here, and then burst is like here, to be honest. I think that's where it is. And I think that amplify is not the best if it wasn't the defect, because the defect is a very power-driven class, right? Literally to the fact that it says, hey, anytime you play a power, draw cards, right? So I feel like oftentimes we are putting enough cards into our deck that an amplify could be good, but do we really get all that excited when we see it? No. Because it's kind of just limited echo form. Like, it's kind of just like echo form, but only for your powers and only this turn. I go, wow, a useless rare card. Yeah, exactly. I feel like the reason why we don't like seeing amplify is because we're not seeing echo form. We're not seeing biased cog. We're not seeing electrodynamics. We're not seeing core surge, creative AI, even though it's kind of bad. We're not seeing the other really strong rare cards that we want to see. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's why we don't get that excited. And you know what, man? I think it's 3 for 3 here. I think it's triple B tier here. You guys would say high C. All right, let's see that. Let's see if the... Okay, I'll put it in C unless it has a really good beta art. That's a B tier beta art. That's a B tier. Auto shields. Auto shields is an interesting card. 15 block, 11 block. If it's not upgraded. Decent art. Auto shields is not a card that I feel like we're often putting into our deck, because we oftentimes are, you know, looping cool headeds. I think that one thing that if the defect just doesn't struggle on often is defense. We are building a deck that is so strong in the defenses for defect, we forget to have offense, and that's how we lose. Because the enemies that scale too fast because we're too fucking slow playing too much defensive cards. Because it's really easy sometimes with the defect to just be like, yes, I would like 17 glaciers and 42 cool headeds and 19 defrags. Oh, you mean I don't have any damage? No, I do. I have an electrodynamics. Oh, I only can play those lightning orbs once? Shit. I think that auto shields is a lower tier block card for sure. And I think that this can be a really good card as well, because 15 block for 1 mana, it's phenomenal, right? But how many times are we later into the game drawing with a cool head at the beginning of our turn, which then evokes one of our frost orbs from last turn for 5 block, and then we draw into auto shields, and it's like... But it's fantastic in Act 1, and even though it is uncommon, if I'm in Act 1 and I don't have a block card, I get excited to see it. But it is useless so much more often in the game, it's going in C tier, maybe even D tier. Just because it's if you have no block, and I feel like so often later into the game we can't play it. Ball of Lightning. Ball Lightning's great. Ball Lightning's so fucking good, dude.
Yep.
Yeah. Floor 1 of Defect. What card would you like to see above all else? You're like Echo Form. Of course, obviously. But if we're being realistic, about rarity chance and, you know, more likely seeing common cards.
Happy 3 months.
Happy 3 months,
Glad
Grandmaster Robin. I'm happy to have you, man. Thank you so much. Get some love. This is it. This is what I want to see. This is awesome. This wins you Act 1, but it is that great later in the game still. It can still do a lot later in the game. It's good later in the game if you build your deck around Orbeez, because making more Orbeez is always poggy. So I think that Ball Lightning, actually, I'm going to, even though I don't take a lot of them later in the game, I'm going to put Ball Lightning in S tier. It's going in S tier. It's literally Zap, but better. Yeah. Now here we come to a card that I feel like a lot of people don't realize is good. He's playing dodgeball. All right, it's S tier. Okay. B for Barrage. I disagree so fucking much with that. See, that's why I'm gonna say it's a card that I feel like people undervalue at the beginning of Slay the Spire, but is actually one of like the best cards in the game. You can say, dang, dude, in order to beat the heart, I need a Barrage plus, a common card. In order to beat the heart, I need a Barrage. That's fucking crazy. It scales with strength, which you could just get randomly, right? Like, you could get random bits of strength with, like, Vajra, the dumbbell getting swole, you know, with lifting at campfires, with fucking mutagenics, with reprogram, right? I legitimately think, regardless of beta art, obviously that's an S tier beta art. Fuck the avocado. One in the chat if you agree. Literally, remember how I was literally talking about 2 seconds ago that sometimes we build decks that are too heavy defensively? That literally this one card right here saves your deck. If you build a deck that is too heavy defensively, you've got 17 orb slots, which I know is impossible. You don't need to tell me that. With like 94 focus. I got Inserter, Consume, plus Echo Form, Capacitor, 96, Akabeko, you know? I think Barrage is phenomenal, and more people should be trying to fit it into your deck more often. It's going to be dealing 18 damage, just if you don't even have Capacitation. That's crazy good. If you got Echo Beko Form, twice. Beam Cell. Unupgraded Beam Cell, weak. Upgraded Beam Cell Plus is very powerful, especially when you got something like a Barrage Plus, right? Nuts. Upgraded feels great. Unupgraded doesn't feel good, but here's the caveat. Upgrading this over another card feels like shit. Upgrading Beam Cell over upgrading another card feels like shit, but if you don't have this upgraded, this feels like shit. And it's great in a Claw. It's okay in a Claw deck, to be honest. I'm not gonna be super excited to add it into my deck outside of maybe Act 1, unless I'm running something very specific that could make my deck better. If I'm running like Barrage with Capacitation, yeah, Beam Cell can make it better. But you want to know what can make it better? Another Barrage Plus, an Echo Form, more Cool-Headeds, Skims, Glacier, everything's above it. And so if I see it alongside of another thing, I'm not gonna be like, let's take a Beam Cell as well. So yeah, I think that Beam Cell is going to be the first card that goes into C tier. Yeah. All right, Bias Cogs S tier. We agree? We disagreeing on that? Do I need to explain why a lot of focus is really good? That's probably a little brush. If I do actually need to explain one, beta art, decent, right? A lot of people I feel like when we start out playing this game, we're nervous to use it, right? We're nervous to use it because you're on a clock. Anything that puts you on a clock. I feel like when we started playing the game, one in the chat if you never took a Wraith form. Scary as shit. Terrible card when we first started, right? Because it's like, dude, that put me on a really, really like soon clock. Scary. Because most hallway fights will end within like 5 or 6 turns at the most. And so Biased Cog is almost always safe to play in hallway fights whenever you draw it, most of the time. Now, I'm not just going to say, but as a general tip, it usually is. And that's why it's absolutely fantastic. It's because you're always going to get a heck ton of value out of it. And even late into the game against bosses, you can just decide when the very perfect time to use it is. Obviously, there's a lot of things on the defect as well. A lot of ways to get artifacts, pellets, Panacea, the relic.
Thank you for subscribing.
The card that he has. There's plenty of synergies that go into it. So yeah, it's a fantastic card. Easily S tier. Once you start using it, you won't go back. Blizzard. It's either you build your entire deck around it, or it's awful. That's how Blizzard works. I think it's better than auto shields. I don't. Boot Sequence. Boot Sequence is an interesting card, right? A lot of times, the thought of innate cards that aren't OP as shit are poo, right? The thought of an innate card that isn't helping my deck in any way is poo-poo. Like, when people are like, why don't you take Bottled Flame more often? You could put, like, your Bash in your opening hand. You know what I'm saying? But then I'm drawing 4 other cards that have a less chance now of being Demon Form or being Corruption or being Feel No Pain. Whatever these really good things that my deck does. Boot Sequence, however, I think is one of the few exceptions to that rule. Fantastic. Awesome beta art. Defect just got a lot of good beta art. He's a cutie patootie. But yeah, Boot Sequence is fantastic at protecting you, especially, I mean, yeah, like someone said in chat, it's a free anchor, except it does take a draw slot, so anchor is technically a free boot sequence. When you're going into Act 2, and a lot of the turn ones on Ascension 20 are 20 plus damage, yeah, I like having boot sequence, I'm not gonna lie. and there's a lot of synergies as well with holograms, all for ones, that easily, when you don't use it on turn 1, it is free block that is just sitting in your discard pile, waiting to be drawn back and being utilized, and it's a solid amount. 13 block upgraded. So I'm gonna say that boot sequence, you don't want more than 1, and for that fact, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Just because you don't want more than 1. because then it, like, one boot sequence is like, boom, poggy. 2 boot sequence makes your deck suck balls. Don't do it. Buffer, I'm gonna put in kind of a similar path as Beam Cell, where it's like, I want to upgrade it, but it feels bad upgrading it over upgrading another card. S tier? You guys think the Buffer is S tier? Let's say are you gonna take Buffer over a Compile Driver when you need a lot of draw on the deck? No. Are you gonna take Buffer over another Loop? Absolutely not. Buffer is not as good as you think, man. Yeah, it gets wasted on 1 damage. Dude, I mean, Heart Fight? The Heart Fight, by the way. I think that I'm too often getting baited by Buffer. The more enemies in the fight, the worse it is. If I have, Snekowai in Echo form, then yeah, it's fucking crazy. I'll take 17 of them. Amplify, it becomes way better. But nah, dude, nah. I think you guys, I personally think that you guys are in chat are rating it way too high. I think that it goes in a B tier. I think that it's B tier. Lock on the Bullseye. 11 damage for 1 mana is actually kind of crazy. So just like that in of its own.
Where's his head? He doesn't have his head.
Is an underrated card. In the early game of Slay the Spire, taking things that are strikes, but a little bit more than strikes, is really, really good. And something like a Cold Snap that I feel like we oftentimes will take a bunch of might not be as good as a Bullseye. Because literally Cold Snap is the exact same amount of damage as a strike, whereas Bullseye is +3. Or +2. Sorry, it's +2 damage. +5 because you might upgrade it, because that lock on getting 3 of them is crazy. It's the only card in the entire game that does lock on, which makes your orbs deal 50% more damage. It's like vulnerable, but for your orb damage. Both lightning and dark orbs will be affected. I wish there was more lock on synergy. I think that it would make the game a little bit too strong. But throwing one in the deck early is fine, right? It's going to make your orbs deal a little bit more damage, especially when a lot of time in the early portion of the game, you're going to use your dual cast to kill a lot of things. And so making things die that much faster, like Lagavulin or even Gremlin Knob, is fantastic. Yeah, I think that lock on nowadays is highly underrated because it doesn't get worse if your deck is getting better. Whereas something like, strikes and when you're on like the Ironclad and you're taking like a headbutt or a pommel strike, right? The effect of that card might get worse in terms of helping your deck function and even taking it late in the game if your deck wants it, right? Maybe you're lacking a little bit in damage and you don't want to add more dangerous orb cards that are expensive or more powers or I don't know, just things like that. And this can also be an artifact breaker. So maybe if you have like, if you're running some Go for the Eyes in the deck and you need something to break artifact, Bullseye can be good. So I think that with the right deck, Bullseye is good. I think early game, I'm really starting to like taking Bullseye. So I am going to officially, for the first time today, put an A tier. Capacitor. Now we get into some of the power games. Capacitor S skip. I can make my orb number bigger by doing defrags, right? Make the number bigger, big, right? If you're at 3, you get 3 more. You've essentially doubled the effectiveness of your orbs if you can easily fill up the slots. We take Capacitor when we have like a Cold Snap and a Zap in our deck. Does it make a deck fantastic if you have the capacity to play capacity to play more orbs? Yes. If you have a bunch of focus combined with a bunch of orbs, it just makes you that much better. If you've got things like Consume, makes them that much better. But I think it's fantastic. It's a great late game card. We're always looking for one of these late games. We're building an orb deck. But I think if you take it too early, it can just ruin your deck and make it so you can't. Because evoking orbs early is such a good form of damage or even mitigation that I feel like we oftentimes will take a little bit of
when I saw
capacitation early.
my PP got a little hard.
That's true. That's why it's an A tier. It doesn't have a good beta art either, so it goes out of S tier for that as well. Chaos. Bad. It can help with Capacitor. But the randomness of it is it's just too bad, man. The standard art looks like a beta art. So like it I don't know. I never get excited seeing Chaos. I very rarely am taking Chaos. And when I do, it'll work for like the first couple of times and chat's like, whoa, Chaos, yeah, it's so good. And then it literally loses us the run at some point. Always. It always does. We're going to go ahead. We're going to rate Chaos very quickly. It is literally because of the random effect of it. That's why it's so bad. Because it fills up your orb slots, but it just doesn't. Is Chaos the Inferno Blade of the Defect? Yeah. So I'm going to put it in D tier, man. It's not F. Charged battery. Fucking awesome. It's really fucking good. It's a defend plus, but it's a defend plus plus. It's compared a lot of times to flying knee on the silent, right? But mitigation is safer than damage, right? And so using flying knee and then getting an extra energy next turn, but this kind of playing itself for free and also just being mitigation, which you almost always need or don't really care. Like, dude, there's so many turns where the enemy isn't attacking. I'm like, all right, just throw my charge battery out. I'm not upset to see it, that I get an extra energy next turn. But there's a lot of times where the enemy is hitting really hard and I draw my flying knee and I'm like, damn, I wish that I could block. I wish I was the defect. Defect's cooler. I think the charge battery is fantastic. Dude, I'm honestly going to take a lot of these late game too. Like, I'll take a charge battery late game, especially if I've got like an Echo Form. I want to put charge battery in a similar spot as ball lightning. It might be S tier, dude. Is charged battery actually S tier? Maybe because I don't want 1,000 of them, it's not S tier. I think I'm going to put it the highest of A. I think it goes above capacitor. I might be doing charge battery dirty. Let me know in the comment section below this video. All right, moving on to a controversial card. Chill. Oh, I didn't look at the beta art. True. All right, it's S tier. Sorry. I got to... Sorry. Okay. Chill can be kind of like boot sequence late in the game, where you can be okay with having it in your opening hand. And, you know, it scales with multi-fights. It's really good into like birds in Act 2 and sentries in Act 1. And it's fantastic when you have a lot of orb slots. You got runic capacitor, you got inserter, you've got capacitor bottled for some reason, right? Chill can become very, 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 very good. You've got motion disc. You've got data disk or motion chip, data disk. You've got all these different things. It's really, really good. It has a lot of synergies, but I feel like oftentimes we take it too early and then we go up against the boss in Act 1 and we're like, yeah, dude, I can't wait. I get 36 damage from the Guardian. I can't wait to block for 2. But it can be good. And then obviously it's like 0 mana, infinite block technically for the rest of the fight. I think that I'm going to accurately rate Chill in A tier. Here we go, boys. Here we go. Claw. If I were to accurately put Claw somewhere, because Claw only works with Claw. And taking Claw means that if I'm going to go over a Claw deck, I at one point have to start out by taking a Claw. And then it's only one Claw, which is bad because it's a Claw. And if I don't get another Claw, it gets worse. And then if I get too many Claws, it's even worse. And then, you know what I'm saying. But here's what I'm going to do. Because I like money. And I know that I can exploit the shit out of my chat with this. We are going to make Claw in its own tier. And for every 5 gifted subs, the row moves up. Let's move on to Cold Snap. Beta art for Cold Snap. It's kind of good because he wears 3 hats. And I like hats. If you guys didn't know, every single member of my family and extended family for Christmas got hand and eye hats for Christmas. Cold Snap is literally Strike, but a little bit more. Early in the game, it's fantastic. Adding orbs when you have 3 orb slots is awesome. Silent Toast, thank you very much.
Thank you for subscribing.
Gifting 5 subs, I do appreciate you. Claw is now above F tier. I think that taking Cold Snap early is awesome. Taking Cold Snap late.
Thank you for subscribing.
Usually desperate. Magic Cord, thank you for the 10 gifted.
Thank you for subscribing.
Above C tier. Usually taking Cold Snap late in the game is a little bit desperate because you're looking for defensive positions. Maybe you have a lot of focus, a lot of orb slots, but it's not a cool-headed. It's not going to be a Glacier.
Thank you for subscribing.
It's definitely one of the weaker versions of adding Frost Orbs. It's not a Chill. But I think because of how useful it can be in the early game when you just have 3 orb slots, because it very easily, if you take that and like a Ball Lightning and a dual cast, you can easily get 10 block a turn from it, or 5 block and a lot of damage. You know what I'm saying? So it easily can add up on itself early in the game. I'm going to put it, if we're putting Ball Lightning, Winter. Thank you very much, man. Claw goes above B tier. If we're putting Claw in, or if we're putting Ball Lightning here, I'm gonna put Cold Snap in A tier. Low A tier. But I think that we're always going to be taking one early in the game. And so that means I do get excited for it because it means that I don't have to build a Claw deck. Because if I see a Claw before a Cold Snap, usually going to go downhill from there. Compile Driver. S tier. It is one of the few cards that I am going to take a lot of them late into the game. I think that Compile Driver is S tier. Late in the game, the Defect really likes a lot of cycle, a lot of draw. That's why I always talk about this deck really needs 37 cool-headeds. I would say that Compile Driver is S tier because of the fact that it's just so fucking good late into the game. Gives you a little bit of damage, cycles you into trying to find your better cards. I don't think there's much more to Compile Driver. Just a really good card. All right, here comes another controversial one, boys. Consume. One of the few ways in the games to get focus. You know what would be a thing that can make Consume a better card? Adding one word. Exhaust. I think the way to make Consume broken, absolutely busted broken. Unupgraded is 3 focused exhaust. Upgraded is 3 focus, non-exhaust. And then it becomes a similar situation to like a rainbow, where in a lot of decks, I never want to upgrade a rainbow because I don't want that effect multiple times. But some decks I do. And so I upgrade my rainbow. And I think it's like kind of the same feeling with Consume. Is like, sometimes I only want to play it once, and then I never want it to come up again because then I have 2 orb slots and that's enough. But sometimes I want it to play 1,000,000 times. Because I have Inserter, I have Capacitation, I've got Creative AI, I've got Echo Forms. You know what I'm saying? It's not only good with orb generation stuff. Oftentimes I'll take it and I'll go down to 1 orb slot and just farm a loop. I'm gonna put Consume in A tier. Cool-headed is fantastic. Like we're just gonna say that out loud, right? And like we said, there's a lot of common cards that are going in S tier, boys. And I don't think that Cool-headed is outside of the mix on that one. We're throwing it up there. It's going in S tier. Bottom of S tier, I'd put it above Charged Battery. Core Surge is S tier. We're just going to say it out loud. All right. No more needing to fuss. Core Surge going in S tier. It synergizes with so many things that the Defect wants to do. And then it also just prevents stuff. At the very least, it literally prevents you from getting vulnerable, weakened, frailed, something like that. I don't think there's much argument to it. Artifact is an extremely powerful effect in the game. Now, if the upgrade made it literally, if the upgrade gave it 2 Artifact, and upgraded its damage, it'd be its own tier, above S tier. All right, maybe it's its own tier. All right, Creative AI. Creative AI is the demon form of the Defect. Extremely bait. I think that it is, like, here, D tier. Fucking terrible, dude. Darkness. Oops. Darkness? Spooky. Darkness is upgraded, I think, is one of the best upgrades in the entire game. I think that because of how powerful its upgrade is, just the effect of, even with focus, you know, you increase your focus, then you add a Dark Orb late into the game, it gets so fucking big. Makes me kind of big, you know what I'm saying? Well, if you find 1 Darkness early on in Act 1, and you can upgrade it, you win Act 1. Late in the game, it's also really good, but I don't think that it's like what I'm going to add to all of my decks late into the game. So I think that it's above Capacitation in A. I think they can make your deck. It's very easy to put into a deck, but it's not like a massive game changer. But it is one of the most powerful upgrades in the deck. Just go ahead and put an F tier. This is like probably the most S tier card in the entire game. I don't think there's a card in the game that I get more excited to see over Defrag. Like if we're just talking like straight excitement, like over Echo Form too. It's fantastic. Will be a slide. Beta art of Defrag. Because he's taking the fragments and then he's putting them back together with glue. Doom and Gloom. Doom and Gloom I like a lot. Doom and Gloom I think is fantastic early, even fantastic late. Late into the game, you usually have more energy efficiency, so it's okay to take it. It's a lot easier to take it over early in the game. It's good versus a lot of people. The Dark Orb allows you to be really strong against single-tier opponents and multi-tier, but mostly single-tier. Whereas the AoE from the attack makes it good against multi-tier, multiple opponents, right? So it's like, it's really good in both situations, and you're not losing a lot when you're not into an AoE fight. Just a fucking great card. Dark Orbs, I think, are really undervalued because they're hard to use, but just the AoE effect alone, even if you're not efficiently using the Dark Orb, I think is enough. I'm going to take Doom and Gloom, and this is going to be a hot take here, boys. Hot take for Doom and Gloom. Double energy. Times 2? 2? I think literally because at its base value, it is unbelievably useless. You have 3 energy. It costs 1. At its base value, early in the game, you have 2 energy. Or you have 3 energy. It costs 1. It puts you to 2. It increases you to 4. Literally is giving you +1 mana. And it costs a draw. That's so bad. It does have its place, so I don't think that it can be F tier. Because F tier is usually reserved for unplayable garbage. Like things that you just never would want to take. And I do think the double energy has its place. Why is it not why is it stuck again? OBS! What are we doing today, OBS? OBS has crashed? No shit! Chat. It's not stuck for me. Well, no, this OBS is fine. It's different OBS. My OBS on my gaming computer. Literally, my OBS is closed right now. See, look, I've been on this screen. I've been on this screen for about 2 minutes. OBS is F tier. Today it is. Yeah, so D tier. I'm putting in the D tier, boys. It's great if you can get a turbo first. It's great if you have ice cream, if you have turbo. But it's like not going to do a lot, usually on the turn that you get it. So, yeah. Dual cast. Now, this is going to be a hot take. It's going to be a hot take that's like, you're like, duh, right? Well, it is, right? Dual cast is the bash of the defect. You're like, yeah, it's its starting card. I'm not even talking like that. I'm talking about it in the sense of everything. Of it starts in your deck, and I love that it starts in my deck. I wouldn't not want it to start in my deck. But if I see it in the matching game, which is the only other place that you can get it, another copy of it without getting a Dolly's mirror, I'm never going to be excited to take a second one. And on the Ironclad, we rated Bash in S tier. So I think the dual cast is S tier. Is it great in a lot of your decks? Maybe not. But bro, Gremlin Knob fucking sucks ass, and I like dealing 16 damage to him for 1 mana. 1 in the chat if you agree. Probably the easiest one of the game. Probably the easiest one of the day. Look, he's happy with himself. He loves himself, just like you all should. Easiest one of the day. I don't think I need to talk about it. Echo Form is probably the most powerful card on the defect. Hands down. Yeah. It is phenomenal. It is amazing. Followed up by Electrodynamics, which I think goes right behind it. Yay! Woo! Equilibrium. Equilibrium, I think, is a phenomenal card. I think Equilibrium is a phenomenal card. You usually don't want more than 1 in a deck, but having 1, taking it early, it's one of those good block cards that can get you through Act 1. The effect that it has of retaining your hand is really, really, really strong. And because of how strong I think that it is, I think that it goes in high A tier. I'm not super excited to see it late game, but it is a great, super powerful effect. FTL, what do you guys think? I was waiting for someone to say it. Look what War Tiger said in the chat. He said, free draw. Wrong. It is not free draw. It is free cycle. But it's not free draw. Because you got to remember, with the way that this game works, is drawing 1 card is just drawing the card that you would have drawn if you never had FTL in the deck. Right? A lot of cards are like that in this game. Bruh, it charges so much stuff. Ink bottle, kunai, pen nib, sure. Yeah. And also every single time that I draw it, I am going to play it to draw something better than it. Oh shit, I'm in a time eater fight. Oh shit, I'm fighting the heart. And that shit adds up. I don't get excited about seeing FTL. I'll take it because there's nothing better to put in my deck. I'm going to put FTL in C tier. Easy to make work,
Thank you for subscribing.
obviously, because it just cycles shit, but then it's really bad in
Why
a lot
the
of
fuck
particular
is my
fights.
30?
All right, Fission. Good beta art. Unupgraded? Fission sucks. Upgraded. It is the Defect's version of Offering, right? You take a hit, you take a danger, but then you get rewarded for it, right? And it scales with how good your deck is. But I feel like we oftentimes take a Fission, and then it ends up hurting us because we take the Fission, we remove all our orbs, we don't draw into orbs, but we do draw into Compile Driver, we do draw into our Barrage. So I'm going to take a hot take here. Upgraded, it's really good because it evokes all your orbs. So it can help you with that turn, even if you don't draw good stuff. But then you're still left next turn with having to repair the damage that you did by evoking all your orbs. So here's my take. Hard to make work, but is easily very good. Force Field. Force Field is either really good or it's really bad in your deck. It's either you got 1 billion powers and you're dual casting this shit for 16 mana or 16 block at 0 energy every single fucking time, or I'm drawing it on turn 1, it costs 4, I'm sad. So for that, I'm gonna put that in B tier as well. Because it's either really fucking good or it's Fusion. D tier. I think that the energy that it costs on the turn for the return that it gives you in the future is not worth it. It's kind of like Demon Form, right? Demon Form requires you to play a lot of mana, a lot of energy this turn so that for the future turns, you can be rewarded. But that's a really poor investment because I'm required to draw, then waste 2 of my mana to then get 1 more energy every single turn, 2 if I evoke it. And it might cost me 2 fucking energy on the turn of. It's so clunky. It's so hard to play. There's times when it can be good, but there's so many times when it's butt fucking awful. All right, genetic algorithm. Check this shit out, boys. Check this shit out. You ready? Boom. S tier. S fucking tier, boys.
Here at this Walmart, everyone is lubed up. Home Depot's wood contains plastic?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the news. We come to you with a breaking story out of the stream. Too often, Frost Prime finds himself in the middle of Act 2 with an Echo Form deck, and they say it is too late for him to take a genetic algorithm and make it worth it, even at the beginning of an Act 3 game. And by the time he gets to a heart fight, he may or may not have calipers, and it might block for 87 or 86 in a turn. He always continues to prove them wrong, and yet they never fucking learn that it might be a really goddamn good idea to put one of these things in their decks.
I am here with the one eyewitness who was able to spot the shooter.
But yeah, genetic algorithm I think is one of like easily the best feeling cards as well. Like when you see this card and it's like middle of Act 2, beginning of Act 1. Glacier.
I'm gonna say a hot take, chat.
I'm gonna say he's the avatar. I think that we overvalue Glacier. I think we do. We too often take too many glaciers, and it will prevent us from dealing damage. And I think that too often we fall back on Glacier as a crutch. I don't think that Glacier is a bad card. I think that it's going to go in the highest of A tiers. I just don't think that it's S tier. Now, do I get fucking bonerific when I see this card? Yes. But I don't know. I just feel like it's slightly overrated. I don't know if I have a good way to articulate it, and maybe that means that I'm wrong. Let me know in the comment section below. Caboose, thank you for the 4 months.
My guy.
I'm going to put it in the highest of high of A tier. Because, I don't know, man. Go for the eyes. The eyes is just a neutralize, but weaker. It's just worse. But, I think that people don't take it often enough. Silent value's weak a lot. I think the Defect is in a very similar boat. That the Defect very much values weak, and even though Go for the Eyes is a worse version of Neutralize, I still think that Go for the Eyes is like right here in B tier. I take this card all the time. Having one in the deck feels good. Heat Sinks. I get really excited to see Heat Sinks. Not gonna lie. More recently than in the past. I always try to hold myself off, though, to not take a Heat Sinks when it's not good to. But man, drawing 2 cards just for playing something that I was already gonna play. That's the thing, is Heat Sinks makes the things that you're already gonna do Way better. It's like Echo Form. And why is it Echo Form in S tier? Because it takes the things that I was already gonna do and it makes them better. Now, am I gonna take heat sinks in all of my decks? No, but do I get excited to see heat sinks? Oh, yeah. Because holy shit, I feel like we undervalued the hell out of this card. And I think that it's a lot easier to play, in my opinion, than Fission.
That might be a hot take, actually. Is that a hot take?
I think because of how much the defect values powers, it's low A tier. Hello World. Because you can find it upgraded, it is so bad. If we're talking that getting random orbs is terrible, then getting random things that are not orbs that then are permanently in my deck for the rest of the fight and I have to cycle back and forth through, holy fucking bad. Like, at least when I play Chaos, the only thing that I'm gonna get back is Chaos. When I play Hello World, I'm gonna start to get all of the fucking claws. Also, you find a claw with Hello World, it plays for 3. If you've played 97 claws in a fight and Hello World gives you a claw, it's gonna play for 3. If you like claw, you should hate Hello World. Terrible. Hologram. It's like Exhume, but for your non-exhaust cards. Really fucking good. S tier. It makes your good cards good again. It's crazy. Playing a card twice in a turn, fantastic. I think it's a really balanced, good beta art. I think it's a really balanced card too, because it exhausts until you upgrade it, and the block that it gives you is really weak until you upgrade it. So it makes you have to take it with really high quality cards unless it's upgraded. Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam. Great at the right time. Terrible in 99% of your decks because you're going to value orbs in some way. It's going to carry you through Act 1. You get Necronomicon. You get Pellet. You know what I'm saying? It's like Immolate, except the bad effect is much, much worse. But it does more damage. But do I get excited to see Hyper Beam? Yeah! Yes. B tier. I'll take Fission more often because I'm using Orbeez, but I love Hyper Beam. And I think I should take it more often, to be honest. He's gonna get his butt. He's gonna get his butt. Leap's just a solid card. There's not a whole lot to it. I'm gonna put it in low B tier. Nah, I'm gonna get it put in C tier. And I'm gonna put it in C tier just because it's nothing special. Just block. Loop is S tier. Let me explain why. I said a while ago that we were gonna talk about capacitation and loop. Capacitor gives you more orb slots and then requires that you fill them if you would like to make it easier to start evoking your orbs, which is a very powerful effect. Loop doesn't have that downside where it's like, if I play my loop, it now makes it harder for me to evoke orbs. It now makes it harder for me to even fill up all my orb slots. It doesn't. Loop gives you extra orb slots without the extra orb slots. It is fantastic to just put it on a Frost Orb. Just put the Frost Orb in front. I don't know whether the guy's going to attack next turn. I don't remember what this guy does. When in doubt, put a Frost Orb on Loop. You'll probably survive the next turn. Easy S tier. I'm going to put it up here next to Biased Cog. Boom. And Loop is something that scales so quickly. So unbelievably quickly. Having one Loop stack, it's kind of hard to play, right? One unupgraded loop, it's kind of hard to play. But when I have an Echo Form in play, and I have 17 Loop pluses in my deck, it quickly ramps up and becomes exponentially better. Phenomenal card. Phenomenal effect, I should say. Phenomenal effect. Machine Learning. You got an A, chat. Poggy. Machine Learning. Also known as, why is this a rare card? Also a trap. I think that it's a trap in hallway fights. Yeah. Because, like, if it's not innate, let's say it is innate. Let's just say for the sake of it, we've got it upgraded, it's innate. You draw it on turn 1, you play it on turn 1. The next turn, you're going to draw the card that you're already going to draw. So it takes another turn for it to actually gain value, right? But I think for the simple fact that the defect is allowed to put this innate, I think that it can get value out of most fights. Whereas something like fucking Tools of the Trade on a silent, you can't make innate, so it just gets worse and worse and worse. I think that machine learning, if we're talking about am I excited to see it though, right? That's what we're basing it off of. Am I excited to see a machine learning? No, because I would rather machine learning be echoform or bias cognition or electrodynamics or anything else. And so for that, we're throwing it at the bottom of B tier. Agreed? Melter. Melter is a niche card. It's one of those cards that let me explain. We think about how are we going to defeat Reptomancer on Act 3? Okay, I should take this cleave late into Act 2. How am I going to defeat Time Eater if I have to fight Time Eater? Okay, I should take this X card. Maybe the genetic algorithm midway through Act 2 so that I have a big beefy card that I can play once and I don't have to play 1,000 cards and then I can defeat Time Eater or not struggle for a turn. How do I defeat Woke Bird? I'm taking 1,000,000 powers. I need an alternative. Oh shit, maybe I should think about this this inserter here so that I can naturally gain more orb slots so I don't have to play my capacitors in the Woke Bird fight. But I don't think that we oftentimes think about what do I need to do to beat Act 2? The beginning of Act 2. Melter is kind of the same thing. Defeats a lot of enemies in Act 2. And it's not terrible later into the game because plenty of things have block. It's not terrible. It's not great, but it's a strike plus. And it does a lot of damage. 14 damage is pretty good for 1 mana. I'm not gonna get excited to see it like Act 3. I'm not gonna be like, dang, this is what this deck needs to take it to the moon. But I think too often we don't get excited about seeing it in Act 1, knowing that that's gonna give us a free Act 2 when we are already not struggling with the amount of strikes in our deck. I'm gonna put it top of C tier. Meteor Strike. Meteor Strike is a card that either works or it never will. It either works or it's just not going to. And for that, we put it in the bottom of C tier. I will take it probably more often than Creative AI because I like Snekowai. But it very often just takes up a slot in a boss reward room and I never get to put it in the deck. Or I'll see it on Act 1 and I'll be like, dang, that could have been an echo form. You know, it's kind of like machine learning. Oh, that's a cute art, man. That's one of probably the prettiest arts in the game. Multicast, I feel like it's kind of like the, all right, if I have to take a rare card from this boss fight kind of card. Like, I don't really want to take the machine learning. I don't really want to take the Meteor Strike. So I guess I'll take the multicast. And it can make a deck really, really good. Sure, can. It'd be a finishing move. But that's pretty much all that it is. It's always a finishing move or nothing else. It's the most medium rare card. Yeah, like it might be, you know, upgraded. It's like 0 mana, like it's a 1 mana dual cast or some shit, right? Like it's I'm putting it like, yeah, top of C tier. Overclock, draw 3, get a burn. I think it's a bad card. And it's because when you play it once, you draw 3 cards. Fantastic. But then it adds a card that you don't want to draw into your deck. And it doesn't give you enough value. And then eventually, Overclock could just draw 3 burns. It's so bad in the long run of the deck versus the short term of just drawing those 3 cards. I don't know. I think that this card, I very rarely see any other streamer adding to their deck. And I agree with them that I will very rarely ever add this card to my deck. It is going D tier. Rainbow! Rainbow is arguably the worst upgrade in the entire game. Legitimately. Like, the card arguably gets worse upgrading it. It is one of those cards that I'm just like, all right, I guess I'm going to take this card over another card. I'm not often like, you know what this deck really, really needs? This deck really needs a rainbow. You know, I'm not like, dang, this deck would pop off with a rainbow. I'm more inclined to take it than a fission because it just adds something to the deck. But I don't feel like it makes my deck pop off. But it does cycle a lot of orbs, and if I have a lot of orbs, it adds 3. If not, it can give me 3 evoking all at one time, and I think for that, it goes in low A tier. Reboot used to be a very, 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 very bad card that I would almost never take. And it's mainly because, like the person said a second ago, where the Defect is a one-cycle character where you want to cycle through your entire deck, and then usually you've set up your win condition. And so, Reboot You'll play to try to set up your win condition because you're like, dang, dude, I really I'm halfway through my deck. I need to get to my Echo Form because I'm about to die, but then I don't. And then Echo Form's like even farther down in the deck and you have to draw more. But I think Reboot got significantly better recently. And you're like, but it didn't get buffed. What made it better? I think with the upgrade, with the buff of Aggregate, it has made Reboot a happy card for me to add to my decks now. If I have an Aggregate, I will be happy to see a Reboot. Before then, though, I think it's pretty bad. And so for that, I'm going to put it right next to Aggregate in B tier. Rebound. Rebound kind of fits like Melter to me, where it's like, I'm never going to take it late into the game, but if I have it early in the game because I just needed a Strength Plus, I'm going to use its effect quite often. I've never been excited to play a Rebound. Exactly. Yeah. Now, usefulness, though, it's easy to make work, but it does. So, Headbutt, for instance, relies on everything that's in your discard pile, right? And everything that is in your discard pile could be up to like 40 cards, depending on how big your deck is. But with Rebound, if you're just drawing 4 cards, it's 1 of 4. And I also have to have the mana to play it. Also, like if you're drawing a bunch, like if I'm drawing into like a Consume or something, and then I need 3 mana once I draw into it to be able to play Rebound, Consume, and then still block for the turn, like. So it's not a very exciting card to make work. And for that, I'm going to put right next to Melter in C tier. Any questions? Recursion, unupgraded, feels pretty bad. Upgraded, never seems like an issue to add to the deck. And I get excited. I get very excited to see an upgraded Recursion come into an already powerful deck. It's a very win more card. And I do get excited to see it late into the game and sometimes early. But I feel like oftentimes we take it thinking that it's going to help us, and then it doesn't help us. But it's solid to be able to cycle our Dark Orbs, to be able to maneuver cards into like a loop spot, to be able to evoke orbs without getting rid of them if we have Barrage. But I do think that it can be hard to use, and sometimes we would rather see any other card than Recursion. It goes top of B tier to me. You never want a lot of them in your deck. They're easy to use. You can get value out of them. But when it costs 1, stinky poo-poo. Oh, Recycle. Oh, Recycle. How beautiful you are. I get excited when I see a Recycle. I don't take Recycle often, but I get really excited when I see Recycle. Because even if I'm not getting energy out of playing this card, I can get rid of terrible stuff so that I can draw better stuff. We're back to why exhausting stuff is really cool. Fantastic. If you can ever get it upgraded, it makes it exponentially better. If it started at 0 mana, I would put it S tier. Because I can't, it's A tier. Bottom of A tier. I can't guarantee that it's going to be upgraded. It's A tier to me. Reinforced Body. A very powerful card. It's a very save my ass for a turn card. But usually in order to save your ass requires you to do nothing else in the turn. So it's just kind of like my deck isn't already good enough to not die here. So I need this to buy me some time. Because the Defect has a lot of energy manipulation, I don't think that it's D tier at all. It's also really good in Act 1. I think it's really, really strong in Act 1. And I think for that, it goes like bottom of B tier. I'm not going to take it often, but I do get excited. No, I'll put it upper C tier. Thank you guys for all the gifted subs. Claw is now officially up top, which means, what did we say we were going to move up there once we could? Defrag and Echo Form. Or was it Core Surge? Oh yeah, it was Core Surge. Yeah, it was Core Surge. Because the Core Surge was punching it in the face. Yeah. All right, reprogram. Let me explain, chat, why I get excited when I see reprogram. Because it's not what you think. It's not good on the Defect most of the time. 99% of the time. I like reprogram because chat forced me over and over and over again, and still to this day, to take Prismatic Shard. And it is extremely powerful with Prismatic decks. Arguably one of the best cards to find in a Prismatic Shard deck. And so I get excited naturally. It's like that episode of The Office where every single time that Jim powers down and restarts his computer, he gives Dwight a mint so that when he does it, he automatically starts to salivate and hold his hand out. It's kind of like this. I automatically salivate when I see this card, and it's stupid. It's kind of dumb, and I'm not happy about it. Old reprogram was cooler. Shut the fuck up. It was Scry before scrying was cool. Because of that, I'm going to put it in a low C tier. Got really good beta art, too. Rip and tear, boys. It's got a very confusing beta art. It's very good early in the game. It's a win. It's an Act 1 winning card. 18 damage for 1 mana against Lagavulin and Gremlinob. Really strong. Very easy to make work in your deck. It's also uncommon, so you don't get flooded with seeing it all the time. Yeah, honestly, I get excited to see it. If you have any sort of strength gain in the deck, makes it work. If you're running something with vulnerable, really good. Also good in prismatic shard runs. Quite the good, just a basic good card. It doesn't do a lot of negative, just other than taking up a draw slot. But it's a strike plus. It's literally a glass knife, but doesn't get worse. I'm gonna put it top of right under recursion in B tier. It's really good. Seek. Seek is S tier. Do we have any questions about why Seek is S tier? Oh, did I just skip over Scrape? Okay, Scrape is F tier. Do we need to go over that? Scrape is so bad, dude. Scrape is so terrible. It's actually like, this could be a clash-worthy card. It is so bad. It's so fucking bad. I'd like to discard all of my cards for 1 mana. It's so fucking bad. Like, as a class that needs to draw into things 1 time so we can play them, aka powers, it's so fucking bad. Terrible. All right, chat. Before we get into why Self-Repair is not that good of a card, but has one of the best beta arts in the game, I'm gonna go take a pee. I'll be right back. It's just block. It's just block that you get to play once. It is only good in a deck that when it powers up, right? So let me explain why Self-Repair is a good card, and then why and I've already kind of said why it's a bad card. It is a good card because a lot of the Defect is a power-up, right? He's a guy who powers up throughout a fight. So he wants to play his powers. He wants to get his focus up, play his orb slots, and then he just kind of sits there and just says, no one can hit me, ha 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 ha. So Self-Repair can fit in there for once you stop taking damage, it'll repair you for the damage that you took so that you could get to the point where you didn't take damage. But oftentimes we see it in the beginning of a run, and we're like, holy fucking shit, I am really excited to take this Self-Repair, and then it literally is just 7 block, because using your face and then healing it back up is just like you didn't take 7 damage. But I think that oftentimes it's a noob trap. We get baited into taking it too early, and we don't take it in a deck that has a point where it doesn't take damage anymore. So for that, it goes in the absolute bottom of A tier. It's a good card, but I think a lot of people would want to put it in S tier instinctually, and it just shouldn't be there. Skim! It's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a solid card. It's not good early in the game, so I don't get that excited to see it. Honestly, the most excited that I see it is like Act 4 Elite Fight. Like the later into the game, the more excited I am to see a Skim. Like the larger my deck is, the more energy manipulation I have, the better tier cards that I need to dig and find. Early on in the game though, not very excited to see it. I'm gonna put it middle of the pack A tier. Seems solid? Stack! Or it's a very bad card for your deck. But I feel like by the time that it's a good card for your deck, you don't need it in your deck. So I'm gonna put it top of C tier. Sometimes it blocks for 1, sometimes it blocks for 100. Static Discharge. It's good. Now, what's the only downside to Static Discharge other than like, oh, I'm playing a defensive deck, I don't want this, right? What's the only downside to taking a Static Discharge? I have to think that when I have 3 Frost Orbs intertwined with Lightning Orbs and I'm going up against Stabby Book and I can block for exactly 18 at the end of this turn, and then his 3rd attack will hit me, but then it'll evoke 2 orbs, which will then give me the Lightning Orb, which then give me 5 block, or give me the 1 Frost Orb evocation, so it'll give me 5 block for his next attack, so it'll be, you gotta... Static Discharge is fucking awesome. I'm gonna say tippity top of A tier. Really strong, beats the heart, fills up your orb slots, which is good, and can help you, it actually can help you block in a lot of turns that you would take damage, and while dealing a crap ton of damage early in the game. Steam Barrier. One of the worst beta arts in the game. If you've got an all for one, really good. Holograms early on, really good. Works with Scrape in your claw deck. It's nothing that gets me over the top exciting, but a lot of times it's really good. A lot of times Steam Barrier's pretty good. Really easy to make work. So for that, I'm gonna put it like alongside like Reboot and Amplify. I'm gonna put it bottom of B tier. Like, it's really easy to just throw it in a deck early on, and then it still does stuff late in the game. 8 block. Storm! Really good art, honestly. I like this art. Storm, really good upgrade. Putting in innate, really, really strong. Without it being upgraded, it's kind of weak, but it's one of those cards that like, you maybe not want to focus on upgrading. Storm is a very win more card, where it's like, if I'm already winning, Storm takes me to the moon. Or it's like if I already have Creative AI, which is a D tier card, takes me to the moon. I don't get super excited about seeing it oftentimes, but sometimes when it's good, dude. Oh, man. I'm going to put it B tier. It's like Heat Sinks, except it doesn't draw you stuff. It doesn't make that turn better, right? It scales you throughout the fight, but it doesn't make that turn stronger, which is, I feel like, a more powerful effect from the Heat Sinks, which we put all the way in A tier. But yeah, I think without like a lot of powers, it just kind of falls by the wayside. But, you know, with something like Echo Form or something like that, yeah. Well, we got 3 really shitty cards in a row, all starting with S. Streamline has no redeemable qualities and is possibly worse than Scrape. The only time that you take Streamline is really early in the game because you need to beat Gremlinob and you haven't found anything else. The reason why Streamline is not good is because it's brute force damage, right? It's brute damage. It's ooga booga damage. Non-scaling damage. The only thing that scales is its cost. But brute force damage is better in hallway fights, right? It's better in hallway fights, but what do you not do in hallway fights? Shuffle your deck a fuck ton. So you're not going to be playing Streamline a lot. It feels like a terrible pick to me. Gets clunky late in the game. I don't think we need to go over why Strike is an F tier. It's above Streamline though. Sunder. Sunder is a card that is very controversial to me. I never get excited to see Sunder. It's expensive. Think about this, man. 3 mana for 24 damage. In order to get value out of Sunder, you have to have it on the exact right turn. Okay? Are we agreeing on that? You have to have it on the exact right turn that kills something. And also, you have to also be in an AoE fight. In a multiple person fight. There's a lot of factors coming into play there. You know, are you going to get value at most of the time on Act 1? Sure. There's a lot of people with less than 24 HP in Act 1. So yeah, take it. Win Act 1. Hyper Beam greater than Sunder. Yes. 100%. I know that I have a 50-50 of going into a Gremlinob fight next floor. I have a Molten Egg already, and I just need a big Smorky card. Sure. It needs energy to make energy. Yeah, big Skyrock is better in that case at the point that you're making plasma. Exactly, right? So yeah, I think that Sunder is like, yeah, I'll take it in a Snecko deck, sure. But I'm going to take it in a Snecko deck just because it's card that reads deal a lot of damage and it could cost 0. Like, I'll take any card that does that pretty much, you know? So like, yeah, it's, yeah, I don't value this card highly. I'm going to put it bottom of D tier. You know what? I'm going to put Overclock behind it. Hey, what up, Parzio? Boys, we're coming up on the home stretch here. Sweeping Beam. Sweeping Beam is a fantastic card. It's good AoE. Cycles itself. It feels bad to have a million of them late game, but taking 1 or 2 in the early game in order to defeat elites, it's solid. It's not very exciting to see. I'm not super poggy excited to see it compared to other AoE cards. I'm going to put it at the tippy top of B tier. Right, Turbo. Really good beta art. Very good beta art. It's fantastic in a lot of decks. It's good for literally it pays for itself. You're getting 2 energy minimum, and then you only lose 1 energy in the future. But it can help you on a turn that sucks. I'm gonna put Turbo A tier. Okay, this is the way I think of Turbo. If I'm gonna add 1 turbo to my deck, I would want to add multiple turbos to my deck. Usually, it's very rare that I want to only add 1 turbo to my deck. So it's either turbo's like very exciting for me to see, or just like it's way too early. It's Act 1. I don't need it. Tempest. If there was an argument that using your entire turn to play Reinforced Body, which is saving your ass for a turn, is bad, taking an entire turn to play Tempest is terrible. I just don't think the Tempest is... It's most often I'm upset to see it. Thunderstrike. Thunderstrike. As much as we might love it, it's D tier. I'm not excited to see it. It is clunky. You really like it is a finisher for a deck that probably needs more block cards. It's a finisher for a deck that most likely doesn't need a finisher. It's a win more card that is almost never necessary and almost always unplayable. It doesn't make me excited. Pretty good beta art. And up on the final stretch, White Noise. I will give it D tier only because it's got a good beta art, but it is terrible, chat. You want to know the sole reason that it's terrible? It can give you Hello World. Also, what have we gone over this entire time? When it comes to Defect powers, they almost always have to be upgraded. A lot of the good ones that you want to see need to be upgraded, or they're like, I just farted if you heard that, or they're underwhelming. I don't want to play a fucking White Noise just to get an unupgraded defrag. And finally, after we're done malding, we get to Zap. Which Zap, normally, in terms of seeing it, I would say F tier. You know, if I saw it on a run, F tier. But it's good for my deck at the beginning, right? It's highly good. If you don't get it upgraded and then you take a Ball Lightning, it's literally just a Ball Lightning without the ball. So I think that it's like upper D tier. It's top of D tier, man. It helps me in Act 1 so that I can dual cast my Lightning Orbs more. But other than that, man, it eventually reaches a point where I wish that I could have a faster way to get rid of all of my strikes so I could get rid of Zap as well. Ironclad side by side.
Let me see if I can find the tweet real quick.
All right, there's my Ironclad tier list alongside my Defect tier list. I know that some of the cards are behind me. You can't even see them all, dude.